faith. Now faith. And I'm going to start out with the scriptures, Ruth 1, 1 through 5. It reads like this. During the time of Judges, there was a famine in the land. A man left Bethlehem in Judah and with his wife and 2 sons to stay in the territory of Moab for a while. Everybody say for a while. The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife's name was Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. And they were, that's a tongue twister for me, you guys, Euphrates. I think that's close enough. From Bethlehem in Judah, and they entered the fields of Moab and settled there. Everybody say, settled there. Naomi's husband, Elimelech, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. Her sons took Moabite women as their wives. One was named Orpah, and the second was named Ruth. And after they lived in Moab for about 10 years, both sons died. And the woman was left without her 2 children and without her husband. Verse 1 tells us that the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. And a man of Bethlehem went to sojourn in a country of Moab, him, his wife, and his 2 sons. Now listen, for him to do that, to leave Bethlehem and to go into a country that he wasn't supposed to be in, we'll get to that in a minute. He had to hike through the desolate Jericho Pass. You know how dangerous that was. He has his wife and his 2 boys, they little. And through the Judean wilderness near the Dead Sea, he crossed the Jordan River and went into the land of Moab. This was a definite departure from the promised land and a return towards the wilderness from which God had delivered them. I'm going to park right there for a minute. How many of us, and don't raise your hand, don't have to say anything, have been tempted to go back from whence God brought you because it just seemed easier? The problem with this was, although it was a definite departure from which God had delivered Israel hundreds of years before, this was clearly steps in the wrong direction. God specifically promised there would always be plenty, promised Israel, there would always be plenty in the land of Israel, as long as they were obedient. And do you know God has made promises to you that may not have come to pass, and some may have, but those that have not, it may not be because of disobedience, but I'd check on it. Because sometimes we can miss God and not even know we missed him. I heard someone say, I think it was Pastor Brenda in her message, she was saying how God revealed to her that she had an idol in her life that she didn't think she had. God revealed to me, there are areas in your everyday faith that can come up. What's God revealing to you? This sojourn, the word sojourn. So this means to leave with the intention to return. Amalek's intention of a short visit turned into 10 tragically filled years. He and his sons died in that country. Never did they return to Israel. The name Amalek means God is king, but his actions didn't really show his faith in God as his king. Does our actions in our everyday life show our faith? I'm not talking about to people, I'm talking about to God. We're in the presence of one that really matters, that really counts. And this is an area that we all can grow. It's a daily thing. It says, the song says, never ending, never, it goes on and on and on. The teachings go on and on and on from God. I love that about God. He doesn't give up on us when we have given up on ourselves because of our lack of faith or because of our lack of obedience. He's always and always and always raising you above the situation and putting you in a place where you get an opportunity to grow and jump that hurdle again. That didn't happen with Amalek. He thought he was taking his family out to make sure they survive and have enough, but he walked right out of the will of God. And others may have done the same thing, but the story focused on him and his family. Because the story is really about Ruth, and we'll get to that. We, like Amalek, may be experiencing a famine. But this is now faith. Hebrews 11, 1 and 2. So now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. When you read that scripture, some could read it like, now faith is the substance, things not seen. Or you can read it like, now faith is the substance. Right now faith is the substance. So we, like Amalek, can be experiencing a famine. It can be physical, it could be spiritual, it could be emotional, it could be all three at the same time. The causes can be from anything from family matters to what's going on in the world. What's going on in our own community? Wake up in the morning and this place was robbed and that person was shot and that child was found dead and this over here and they've been burglarized 10 times this month, and it can be quite daunting because most of us will say, but where's God? Where's God in all this? And God is saying, where's your faith? Because that's the world stuff. We had a Pastor John Hayes came and said, what news you listening to? That's the world stuff. And that's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better. Not as long as that is in the hands of Satan. But what can get better is you. What can get better that in the midst of all that chaos, you can make things better by just hanging your hat on what Jesus is saying, what Jesus did for you, what the Word is teaching you. When we get our eyes off the Word, all that other stuff looms up big. I mean, it's happened for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh Lord, this happened and that happened. And then I get up and get in my Word, and I'm like, but that happened. That set me free. And all of that other stuff don't have anything to do with me per se. My job is to maintain my faith to obey God and follow his directions when it comes to that world. Because he's still calling people out of that world. He's still calling people out of that darkness. He's still calling people to his kingdom. So where are we? Let me just say, my calling is an evangelist. And I'm always thinking about soul winning. Always thinking about sharing the gospel with somebody, some kind of way. I will find a way. Because that is planted in my heart. And I'm not saying it's not planted in anyone else's. I'm just saying, when I first got saved, God sent me out. I didn't know nothing, and he sent me to 3 people to tell them he had come to visit me. And when they looked at me, they said, we know something done happened. I didn't look the same, Angel. The substance, the word now means at the present time or moment, now faith. The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So we're to have now faith. Now faith. That's an action word, now faith. Action faith. That we believe God has already done something. We believe God is still doing something, and we will do according to his word and his promise to us, no matter how long it takes. No matter how long it takes. Faith says, wait on him. Now faith says, wait on him no matter how long it takes. I have waited for God to bring things to pass in my life that he has promised me. And some of you may have heard me say this. I'm going to say it again. When God first came and visited me, he told me that I would travel the world. He used a backslider to bring me to him. I say that because God will use a rock to bring you to him. He told me in that interview I was having with this backslider, he told me, you will travel the world. But it's going to be with me, because I had told this person that I wanted to find somebody to travel the world with, trying to control my stuff. And the Lord stepped in. He stepped in right there and interrupted that interview. And when he spoke, I knew who it was, although I didn't know him. I knew exactly who it was. I couldn't believe he was talking to me. And I thought, I got saved that day, that very instant. He saved me just like that. Drugs dropped off, profanity left me. I mean, wow, some things hung on, but it was an immediate change when he started speaking to me. And as time went on, I thought I was going to pack my bags and get ready to go, travel the world. I'm like, I'm out of here. And for 30 years, I told people what God has said to me. And after 30 years, I got married, had to help my son raise his son. I had a business, and I thought I had done something to miss the whole thing. I said, what happened that I just missed that whole thing? And then one day, God took me to Israel. 30 years, he took me to Israel. He didn't let Pastor Mark go. Hi, Pastor Mark, wave to the people so they know who you are. Yeah, that's Pastor Mark. For those of you that don't know him. And he when I came back, he took me through a whole bunch of stuff. That's a whole nother message. But when I came back and I walked into my 2,000 square foot salon, he said to me, shut this down, we're done here. And when we shut that down in February, we were on our first mission trip to Nicaragua. And since then, we have been in 12, 13 countries, preaching the gospel, sharing the good news of the Lord. And I don't believe it's over yet. I don't. I kind of want it to be, but I don't think it is. The cause. This is the thing about faith, you guys. I'm going to pass that up right there because I want to tell you this. This particular scripture that we're talking about now, faith in Hebrews, shows that the central features of faith is confidence and trust. And I want to park there for just a minute because I don't care what you're going through. I don't care what's happened. I just don't. I don't care. There's nothing too big for God. There's nothing he can't rise you above to get you to act in obedience and now faith, to do the things that he's calling you to do for his kingdom, because everything else is just not that important. We think it is, but it really is not, because everything else is coming to pass. So if you had a bad day today and God told you to speak to someone as you were passing them by and you did not, shame on you, because God is not, he's not hung up in your personal stuff. I'm not saying he's not concerned with it. Some of that stuff is to make you grow. Some of that stuff he allows to come into your life so that you can get where he's leading you to go. And he can't let those little things hinder you. And so you have to learn how to jump those hurdles, how to overcome them, how to climb those mountains, to be obedient to your God. I mean, I can tell you time after time, the situations that God put me in that I didn't want to do. And he didn't care that I didn't want to do them. He would just press me. He would press me until I did it. And how I dare not do it, because where much is given, much is required. And I know the pit I came out of. I know what he saved me from. And so my life that I couldn't do anything with, I gave to him to do something with, right? You gave your life to him to do something with. So now let him do something with it. Sometimes we take these detours the Amaleks took. Sometimes we take those detours, but remember the story. He never made it back. Him or his sons, they never made it back. And sometimes we can get ourselves into situations, and we have to be so very careful about this, because you may not make it back. Faith says, stay put, stay grounded, stay with Jesus, no matter. No matter. Now faith, the substance of things hoped for, describes a conviction that already takes place in our hearts when we come to Christ. When we get saved, and is still here and now, today. This present day, ownership of things hoped for and promises in the future is an inner reality. It's not like things hanging off of us. It's in here. It's in here. That you know. That you know. That you know that he lives. That he saved you. That he brought you out of that darkness this song so sung about. You know. So now where's your now faith? Because it's still in here. We just need to put it in operation. Someone said to me one time, Pastor Jeanette, when you go out, because my husband and I used to go out on the streets. We had this street ministry, and we was out there all the time. We would pick up them homeless folks. We would bring them to the church. My husband would drive a big bus downtown. We'd go down on Saturday and talk to them and engage with them. And then we asked them, do they want to come to church? And they would be like, yeah. You know why they wanted to come to church? Because we engaged with them. Well, we did promise them a dinner too. But mainly it's because we began to build a relationship with them. And my husband, he would take the big crankly bus from the church, and we would drive down there, and they would go up into the shelters, and they would just all be coming out through the alley to get on that bus and come to church. And then we would have Christmas for the homeless, where we would buy all these things. One year we spent about $1,500 on our family for Christmas. And you know, if you had asked any one of those children or anyone what we gave them, they'd be like, I don't know. So I said, honey, let's not do that no more. Let's take that same money and go to Walmart and different places and buy stuff and take it downtown. And we did that for about 10 years. Christmas for the homeless. Now faith. Now faith will cause you to act. Now faith will tweak your ears to hear God. So that he can direct your path. And it has nothing to do with your personal stuff going on in your life. He showed me that. Something happened in my life, and it was like, put that to bed because I need you to do this. And I had to do that. His word can be trusted, and we should have full confidence in the Lord's promises, because we have experienced him for ourselves. The promises are real, and it's the only firm foundation that we really have to stand on. Don't run off to Moab because there's some food over there, or because there's some dainties there, or because the grass looks greener over there. God said, stay put. This is where you are. This is where you stand. This is where I'll use you at. My father used to tell us, if I tell you something, you can go to the bank with it. And I took that on for myself, too, with my children. But he said, and he was right, too, because if Daddy told you that he was going to whip you, you go to the bank with that. But if he told you he was going to give you $50, you go to the bank with that, too. It's the same with the Lord. If he tells you something, you can bank that. It's going to happen. It's going to take place. He is not a man that he should lie, nor the son of man that he has to say, oh, I'm just sorry it didn't work out that way. He's faithful to his word. He has proven it over and over and over again in my life, and I'm sure he has proven it in your life as well. I'm sure he proved it in Imelech's life, but he had a little waver of doubt. And sometimes we can have that little waver of doubt, but that don't mean you pick up and move all the way into a territory God told you not to go to. That don't mean you pick up and go back to your life the way it was before you met Christ. Those are just tests. Not for God, for you. Those are tests for you to know where you are. When God asked Adam and Eve where they were, he knew where they were. He wasn't asking them for his benefit. He wanted to know if they knew where they were. Do you know where you are? Do you know where you are in God? There's 4 types of faith. Let's take a look and see how we measure. So, saving faith is knowing Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Can you? Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him. Some of your ways? Just when you feel like ways? And he will make your path straight. 2 Corinthians 5 and 7, saving faith. For we walk by faith and not by sight. We have to get our eyes off what things look like. Our natural eye. Our natural eye can get us in a lot of trouble because we are looking at people, criticizing them. We don't even know what's going on in their life. We are looking at things and thinking that it's this way or that way, and it's neither way. It's God's way. Saving faith, Ephesians 2 and, make that a little bigger, I think 2 and 3. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not of your own doing. Couldn't have made it happen if you wanted to. I know my grandma used to say to me, oh, you changed so much. I'm so proud that you changed. And she didn't never understand when I would tell her, honey, Grandma, it wasn't me. It was Christ that changed me. And this is not of your own doing, but it is a gift from God. Everybody say, I got the gift. And then Matthew 17 and 20 says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move the mountains out of your life. Now, when I first heard that when I was new in the Christ, I love Mount Rainier, and I was going to try it, see. I was still in the natural, still back and forth with that natural thing. And I was afraid. I was afraid to say it to the Mount Rainier because I didn't want it to disappear. Love that mountain. As a believer, never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. I'm going to say that again. You can write that down. Never be afraid. Never doubt. Never give up on. Never be afraid to trust an unknown future. Because faith is what you don't see, right? To a known God. You know him. You've met him. He lives in you. He walks with you. He protects you. He's with you 24/7. I want to tell you about something real quick. I'll tell you this. I'm going to close this. I'm going to tell you about a time when I have the faith. This is what God brought back to me when he had me studying this text. My first niece, her name was Missy. And she was living a compromised lifestyle. Beautiful, beautiful young girl. And she was raised up to believe that if you're just a good person, that you'd be all right with God. But she was living this lifestyle, and she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And I knew, I'm gonna have to talk to her. I'm gonna have to see if I can't kind of straighten this all out for her so that she can make it to heaven, because it was in the ends of her life. And her partner, they say they had gotten married, but you can't marry like that. That's not marriage. I'll just say that. So I was trying to get to her, to talk to her about just letting all of that go so that she could be free to meet Jesus. And the more I tried to get in there, the greater the warfare came against me. And one day, and even when I would go, I could just feel nobody wanted me there, you know? But I had to see if I could get to her and talk to her. And I wanted to set up a meeting with her and her partner and let them know this ain't gonna leave here to heaven. You have to repent. You have to give it up. And the more I tried to do that, the more they was like just too done with me. So God told me, guys, don't go anymore. He said, don't go anymore, because I had asked God if I could be with her when she departed this world, because God has allowed me to be with almost every person that's here when they depart this world. And he has allowed me the honor of being with them and helping them to cross over. And I count that a great joy and an honor to do. I wanted to do that with her. But he had told me, I left one day after seeing them, and he said, don't go back. He said, I want you to just start cooking for the family. Make some food for the family. So I started doing that. And then one Saturday, we were at the salon, and I called my sister, and she was like, everybody's here with Mimi. And so it was just right around the corner. It was just right over there in Moab. And I said to Mark, honey, take me over there because my family's over there and I want to be with them. Oh, my Lord. All heck broke loose in that place. And they were actually able, the partner, to ban me from going anymore into that place to see her. And even when I was able to say goodbye to her, I saw in her face that she was very angry with me. I'm telling you this because I panicked. I panicked. And God was telling me, panic don't belong here. Faith belongs here. I am the God of salvation. I am the one who says who does and who doesn't. And my panic caused me to lose that opportunity to be with her when she left. I'm telling you this because you cannot disobey God. He wasn't mad at me. He was teaching me a big lesson. Because listen, that thing came up another 3 years later where something like that happened again. And I'm getting ready to go into this panic. And God said, hey, wait a minute. Don't you remember? This is the same thing. What you going to do? How you going to handle it? I'm telling you this because I want you to know that there are things that are going to come up in your life that are going to cause you to just be too through. But that's when you put your now faith to action. That's when you put your all that you know about God in place in the front of it. That's when you know. That's when you know to get on your knees. That's when you know to pray. There's 4 types of faith. There's dead faith. Inform us that faith without works is dead, James does. He also tells us there's demonic faith. Teaches that even demons believe and shudder at the name of Jesus. And then there's vain faith. Faith that many profess in God, but don't even know him. And then there's saving faith. Trust. Walking by faith. Living by grace and obedience. Prayer builds faith, which leads to obedience. And as believers, your ultimate hope relies not on the people and circumstances around you, but on the God above you. It's one of the most powerful resources that we have in now faith. Luke says men ought to always pray and not lose heart. James says the prayers of the righteous person has great power as it is working. Hebrews says without faith it's impossible to please him. And again it says, let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace. In the story of Ruth, her disposition and character captured the attention of Boaz. Y'all remember Boaz? And therefore fulfilled Boaz, a close relative of her deceased husband, and he was a clansman of her father-in-law. And therefore that role was fulfilled through the kinsmanship and redeemer that took Ruth as his wife. The book of Ruth is a wonderful example of God's providential care for his people and his willingness to accept those who seek him.